I wrote this book many years ago, and several years later I picked it up one day and flipped to a random page. I was so shocked by what I read that I immediately unpublished the book and swore I'd rewrite it someday when I had the time. That day has finally arrived. First, I would like to explain how I could become such a different person. I discuss the brainwashing of children later in this book and explain the hows and the whys, but had never thought about how I had been one of those unfortunate kids until recently. The realization came while writing my 20th book, almost 15 years later. I'd been a perfectly normal teenager, and my parents took me to a doctor to see what could be done about it. He gave me a prescription for Zoloft, which made me no longer care about important things, like paying attention and getting good grades. I couldn't care less. And something else, my taste changed dramatically. For example, at the end of high school, I'd heard a clip of Natural Born Killers on the new movie soundtrack in someone's car. I was horrified. After another year of taking those mind-bending pills, it became my favorite movie, and I was fascinated by all the killing sprees that were inspired by it. I started reading books about serial killers, listening to Nine Inch Nails and Marilyn Manson, and even fancied myself a bit of a predator. This led to a series of events resulting in 5 years in prison, and much of this book consists of personal experiences in the 33rd Street jail while awaiting trial. I wrote the book during my 5th year in prison after being a guinea pig for Big Pharma and thinking that the Heresy books needed to become progressively more disturbing throughout the series if they were going to make any impact on society. In earlier publications of this book, there's a lot of racism and unnecessary foul language. That's what I found on the randomly chosen page after detox and years of clean living. If you've read that book, I apologize, it wasn't me. That was the monster that the evil people in pharmaceuticals turned me into, and I'll explain why later. If you haven't, know that I'm making a serious effort to keep the bulk of this novel intact. I have to try not to overhaul it because 25-year-old me had something important to say. 43-year-old me would never have been in jail to begin with, much less feel obligated to hold up a mirror to the cesspool of society and scream, "Look at yourselves!" I also wouldn't have written a 6-page sex scene starting on page 66. A far more conservative 43-year-old me is still leaving it in, but at least you're getting a, what are they calling it these days? A trigger warning. This book is a time capsule. Rereading it, I am looking at who I was during the worst time of my life, so long ago that it feels like the hazy recounting of someone else's dream. People who know me now are shocked that I could have ever written something like this, that I could have been this person. Sometimes I feel the same way. I would happily leave this book unpublished and just pray that every other copy of it has been burned and forgotten, but they haven't. They're out there somewhere, and in the world I'd predicted in it is rearing its ugly head. Nobody will ever believe it to be prophetic, though, with so many F and N bombs, unless I make a few changes. So here goes. P.S. Try not to skip to page 66, you bunch of degenerates.